Neither came I myself, but He sent me. This is very important. Now read in this background the last statement attributed to Jesus prior to his being crucified, his having been crucified. Then it makes the whole the complete story. He says, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass by me by, yet not as I will, but as thou wilt." Here, another confession is made by Jesus Christ in the same area, but slightly different from the first. He says that I came not of my own accord, you sent me. And you sent me for some noble purpose, of course, to be performed. But if this purpose is my sacrifice, then as far as I am concerned, I beg thee that save me from this and pass the cup by me, because I am not ready for this. Yet because you sent me without consultation, without my accord, getting my willingness, so even now I submit to thee. My true desire is that I should be saved, but if you think otherwise, so I'll submit to you. So neither in the first commissioning of Jesus Christ, whatever the purpose of that commission was, his intention was in his desire was assured, or let us see, his desire had, or his personal intention had no part to play in his commissioning. And that is exactly how every prophet stands. No prophet of God has a desire to be commissioned. This is what truly it means. So it is a wonderful statement from the mouth of a prophet, but it is not a suitable statement from the mouth of someone who claims to be the savior of the world, who says that he himself has, if he had ever said it, offered himself for saving mankind and offering his own life in their stead. So that is very clear. And in the end, again, there is a fundamental I should say, there is a universal tendency of all pious people that they do not force their sacrifices upon God. They want, as far as they are concerned, they want to avoid trouble and evil. And to that end, they continue to work, and to this end, they also teach their followers to work. Nobody would desire from God unnecessarily that he should put him to adverse trials and get him persecuted at the hands of others. No prophet ever did it. What they do is, they must serve the purpose of God, and in that process, they want Allah's help again over their enemies. They want God to save them from all trouble, whatever, if possible. But if for the higher purpose, a sacrifice is essential and it cannot be avoided. If in the general plans of things, Allah must make his people suffer for his sake, then the prophets say, then we are ready. Whatever may happen, we are not going to retreat our step from this path. This is exactly what Jesus Christ is doing. So he is in complete conformity with the established conduct and traditions of earlier prophets of God and the noble men all over the world. But if he were a son of God, if that is what he came for, to offer his own life for the sake of the sinner, then this is a very inappropriate statement attributed to him. Now, sometimes they lean upon the last bit, the Christians, during the discourse, they lean upon the last part of this statement. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. And they attribute that hesitancy to the flesh, not to the Spirit of Jesus Christ. That when Jesus Christ begged of forgiveness and wanted God to pass that cup by him, what he meant was that because his body was weak, so for the sake of the body he was doing all this. And this is exactly why human beings fall prey to sin, for the sake of bodies. The soul never desires sin. It is always the flesh which overcomes the higher spirits, and for the sake of flesh and the worldly pleasures and things and comforts, all sins are committed. So here Jesus, if he is referring to flesh in that sense, claims that for the sake of flesh, I want this to be, to be avoided, this trial. Then he is behaving like an ordinary human being. And this is not why he came for. Moreover, flesh, according to the Christian doctrine, has no part to play in that sacrifice. The sacrifice was to be offered in reality, after the severing of connection of his soul with his body. The hell it is, the 3 nights and 3 days and 3 nights in hell, which is in fact the true sacrifice according to the Christian doctrine. So when he says, pass this cup by me, he naturally refers to the punishment which he knew would be in store for him if we accept the Christian story. So in that case, flesh is not involved at all. There is no question of flesh playing any part in it. What was he referring to? If for the sake of flesh he wants God to not to permit his enemies to take his life, then ultimately what it amounts to is that he is avoiding the actual punishment under some excuse. That, oh God, I am willing, I don't go back on my word if a word was ever given by him, but my flesh is weak, so what can I do about it? You better do something. So this is, if he was a son of God, all this is nonsensical, doesn't read sense at all. And it is paradoxical to the situation which is being attributed to him. So it only means one thing and one thing alone, that he admitted that being a human, he was weak. And like all human beings, he wants to serve the cause of God, but there are moments when he's afraid. There are moments when he knows that beyond that, perhaps I will not be able to carry myself. So he wants Allah's help in 2 ways. Number one, if it is possible, to save him that predicament or trial. But if God has already designed and willed that that Jesus Christ must drink that bitter cup, then he says, I'm ready, of course. The will here refers to that. The spirit here refers to that will which has already been referred to earlier. again, he makes himself very clear. He went away a second time and prayed, "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to pass me by without my drinking it, thy will be done." What is that cup? That cup is meant to be that sacrifice which he was offering, or which was to be taken from him. He came again and found them asleep, for their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away again, and he prayed the third time, using the same words as before. So he was very restless too. Went on moving about and praying, and also he coaxed and admonished his disciples for sleeping and told them that they don't realize the seriousness of this crisis and the situation. So they should wake up all night and pray to God with him so that he saves him this cup, bitter cup. The last part of this verse, Haza Siratum Mustaqim, also solves the riddle of what Jesus Christ meant when he said, "I am the way." Every prophet, in fact, claims to be the way to God. And it does not mean that the one who claims that he is the way, he is God. So the Holy Quran has modified that statement, or let's say not modified, but clarified that statement attributed to him and put it in its true perspective. What Jesus Christ meant was, Haza Siratum Mustaqim. My way is the way of God, is the way that leads to God. And this is the claim made by every other prophet. So this is nothing unique and distinctive about Jesus Christ. This is what every other prophet shares with him. فَلَمَّا أَحَسَّ عِيسَى مِنْهُمُ الْكُفْرَ, and when Jesus perceived their disbelief, he said, "Who will be my helpers in the cause of Allah?" The disciples answered, "We are the helpers of Allah. We have believed in Allah, and bear thou witness that we are obedient." In this verse, there are certain words which have been intriguing many commentators as to what they stand for. And the very first word which has caught their special attention is the word Hawari. They say this, mostly the commentaries, the old classical commentaries, begin with the word Hawari and concentrate on this. They want to solve the meaning of Hawari. Hawari, according to most commentators, indicates that the disciples of Jesus Christ were washermen. Dhobi, they refer to, and some of them say no, they were fishermen. Why they have been conceiving Jesus Christ's disciples to be washermen is because Hawari, in fact, is derived from an Arabic word which means to clean somebody, to clean something. Hazrat Maulvi Sarwar Shah Sahib Radiyallahu Ta'ala Anhu, in his Tafsir Sarwari, has discussed this. He says that this word Hawari is derived from tahwir, which means to make something clean and white. So this is the reason why many of the commentators thought that this was a literal application of the word to them, and it meant that they were, they belonged to the profession of cleaning clothes. While there is no evidence from the Bible or from the history that they belong to that profession. In fact, Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ and other Khulafa and the Ahmadi scholars have understood this word as they generally understand such words in the metaphoric sense, and explain that because they were specially trained by Jesus Christ to cleanse people of their sin, of their bad habits and practices. So this was a special idiom of the New Testament, like the Holy Quran says, Muzakki, yuzakkihim wa yuallimumul kitaba. So a lower order of tazkiyah would be referred to as Hawari. Tazkiyah, as used in the Holy Quran, is a word which is far more intense and wider in application. Hawari, comparatively, is more superficial. This is why the earlier scholars misunderstood this word, because it was not previously being used in the Arabic for spiritual cleaning. So it has an air of comparative superficiality about it, surfaceness. So this is why they said they were dhobis, that is to say, the washermen. While in fact, what it meant was that it was not only Jesus Christ who cleansed people of their sins, but his followers also were trained in this art, and they used to do the same thing. Now the word ahassa, falamma ahassa minhumul kufra, what does ahassa mean? Hazrat Muslim Maud quotes Arabic grammar to translate this word, to explain this word, only to mean to perceive, to see something. Ahassa anho khabaran means ra'a, that is, he saw something. And as far as other commentators are concerned, they also, of course, agree that the word ahassa means to perceive and to see something. But let me see. Imam Razi has gone one step further and said that ahassa does not mean only to see, but it also means to feel something which has not yet appeared. So it is a wider word, and it should be understood in this wider connotation. Hiss is the basic root word for ahassa, and which does not mean only to see, but also to feel something wrong is going on, something is about to happen, to fear or to suspect something. So, according to Imam Razi, when Jesus Christ, it means that when Jesus Christ claimed prophethood and supported his claim with argument, then he sent feelers and started to feel the reaction of the people whom he was addressing. And what here ahassa means is the sense of danger which Jesus Christ felt at that time. So ahassa means he felt something beyond that kufr. Kufr is not directly the object of the word ahassa, although the Holy Quran says ahassa minhumul kufra. So according to this reasoning, because it means feeling, perceiving something beyond what it appears to be, so here kufr is not exactly the object, but the result of kufr, the result of denial, that is danger, persecution and attempted murder, etc. So on this line, some commentators have started building many stories. For instance, Suddi has this to say about it, that when in the beginning Jesus Christ uh, invited people to the path of Allah, they refused to accept him, rejected him, and in the first period of his life, his life was similar. He was similar to the life of Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam spent in Mecca in early days. So he used to hide in the houses of his friends and sometimes in the caves. And people were after him and were in search of him, so that whenever his mother moved about, people started to pursue her so that she may lead them to Jesus Christ. It's a strange story. I mean, I can't understand how he connects it with this verse. فَلَمَّا أَحَسَّ عِيسَى مِنْهُمُ الْكُفْرَ قَالَ مَنْ أَنْصَارِي إِلَى اللَّهِ. But he must have a very inventive brain, or he must have an access to some fiction books, because then he goes on building by saying that this was the state of affairs when Jesus Christ kept on running for his life and hiding in different places. Once he stayed with somebody and found him to be very sad and depressed about something. When he asked him why, the answer was that the monarch of this city, or it was not the monarch, but this is the word used, the commissioner or something of that city, the chief of that city, was a very cruel person. He has made it compulsory on every citizen to feed him and his retinue one after the other. So each citizen of that town is given an appointed turn, and during his turn he must feed that ruler or the mayor of the town and his retinue, as many as they come with him. So he said, I am a very poor person, and this is my turn tonight. So although Jesus Christ was hiding, he said, well, I could help you, but it may lead to trouble. So he said, no, but for God's sake, do it, because after all, I am a poor man. If you can help me, do something about it. Then Mary was also at that time with him. She interceded for that boy, that man, and said, my son, why don't you do it? Jesus Christ said, again, have told you, because of shar, because it may lead to trouble. So she said, no, go ahead and do it. These things happen. So he ultimately decided to help him, and he provided him with such a wonderful feast that it was a glorious occasion when the cruel ruler of the town came with a large party along with him. They were fed with the best food and they were offered the best wine of the country, and it was indeed a festival dinner. So in the end he thought, where from all this? And he answered him this particular question, that how did you get all this? This is strange. So because he had no other answer, he was caught in a corner from where he could not extricate himself. So he ultimately confessed that there is a man hiding in my house. He did all this, otherwise I am a poor man, I couldn't have done it. So at that, this time, this man himself needed Jesus Christ, luckily for him, this ruler, because only a few days earlier than that, his son had died. So he said, if such a person, such a magician is already in your house, lead me to him. I have also some cause to seek his help. So he was led to Jesus Christ and he told him. Again Jesus said the same thing. He said, well, it's easy, no problem, but it will lead to shar. There would be commotion and things would go wrong. So he said, look here, my son has died and you are afraid of commotion and this and that, and so please do it. So Jesus Christ revived his son from the dead, and at that when people came to learn, they all armed themselves. And instead of attacking Jesus Christ, they started fighting with each other. Now how did that happen, we don't know. He started, from the story that Jesus Christ was hiding himself and he did not want people to be led to himself. This is why he was not showing miracles openly. But when he did ultimately do that, people, instead of attacking him, they started fighting with each other. So when the Jews came to learn of this commotion and they investigated the cause of all this, they were led to Jesus Christ. Now, this is the reason why they have to think of a commotion earlier, not connected with the Jesus Christ directly. Not asking for his blood. Because they know it were the Jews. The Holy Quran says it were the Jews. So how could the ordinary dwellers of the town, for any reason, demand for Jesus' blood? So they say that commotion ultimately led the Jews to investigate the matter, and when they knew that there was such a man hiding there, so they knew their enemy and they caught him and insisted that he should be killed. And then they say this is why, because the Jews, this is the second, statement of somebody else's. He says, that the Jews were against Jesus Christ. Why? Because they knew that he was the prophet which was promised to them. And they did not want to accept him as such. They wanted to stick to the Torah, the old teaching, and they had already known that if Jesus Christ uh, ultimately became victorious, he would abrogate the entire teachings of Torah, which, according to this commentator, he did. So all this conception, all this story is built on a false idea and nothing more. And moreover, if the Jews were so sure that he is the man, how could they oppose him so clearly? Sometimes it happens, but not in large numbers. And they say why he said Man Ansari ilallah was that when Jesus Christ realized that he had been rejected, he wanted to find out who among the people were truly belonged to him, were those who truly belonged to him, and who were those who rejected him. So it was only just to sift the right from the wrong that he said, Man Ansari ilallah. Now that is also absurd, because all those who were opposed to him were very obviously evident, and there was no question of his entertaining any suspicion as to who did oppose him and who did not. And those who suffered for his sake, who believed in him, how could he be about any doubt as to who they were? So that is obviously not the reason why he made this. This invitation, sent this invitation to the people. One of the commentators has a brilliant idea about why he said Man Ansari ilallah. He said, in fact, what he meant was that he addressed his disciples and said that I must save myself from this trial. So, is there among you any person faithful enough to offer his life for my sake so that he could take my shape and help me escape this trial? So, Man Ansari ilallah means anybody who would offer his own life for the sake of saving mine. This is the concept of the savior, on the other hand, entertained by the some of the Muslim scholars. On the one hand, it is the Christian concept, and on the other, this. While neither is true, no prophet of God can do that. One of the commentators has gone so far as to interpret this verse to mean a jihad on the part, that is the holy war on the part of Jesus Christ, fought with swords. He said that when we read in another place, فَآمَنَتْ طَائِفَةٌ مِّن بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ وَكَفَرَتْ طَائِفَةٌ فَأَيَّدْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا عَلَىٰ عَدُوِّهِمْ فَأَصْبَحُوا ظَاهِرِينَ. It surely means that when he said Man Ansari ilallah, he meant to build an army to support his cause and to fight an actual battles, to go into war with his opponents with sword. So when he did, ultimately he became victorious. Now where it happened, nobody knows. Who was that Jesus Christ who fought with sword? Who were the enemies who were defeated by him? I mean, that is something only known to this commentator. many have got engaged very deeply and inextricably in the expression ilallah. Some say ilah here means ma. Some say no, it cannot mean ma, it means something else, and so on and so forth. While most of them do understand about the same thing from this. That is, when he said, Man ansari ilallah, who is the helper to God for me, what he meant was that in the cause of Allah, I need helpers. So whoever is there who would offer himself to help me in the cause of Allah, that was the simple meaning. But there have been lengthy discussions, mostly from the grammatic point of view, as to what illallah should mean to read. For instance, one of the scholars quotes another verse to help to support the meaning which he prefers. وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَهُمْ إِلَىٰ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. He says that it means ma here, because sometimes ila means ma, that is with, instead of to or towards, it may also mean ma, that is with. So he quotes the verse, La takulu amwalahum ila amwalikum, do not eat their wealth with your wealth. Ila amwalikum he takes to mean is the word is with. While some other grammarians have vehemently opposed this view and have taken the position that it is impossible for ilah to mean ma. Never in Arabic does it mean ma, because the sense contained in ilah is exactly opposite to the sense contained in ma. Ilah means a direction, a movement from one place to the other. And it is impossible for ilah to have any sense of mayyat, because the moment you have the sense of mayyat, that is with, to be with, then the sense of ilah, that is towards, is automatically cancelled and abrogated by this word. So they say because they are paradoxical meanings, they cannot be attributed to the same word at the same time. And again he says, when Allah says, La taqulu amwalahum ila amwalikum, it means that don't take their wealth and remove it from them and transfer it to your wealth. That is the meaning of ilah. Not that together. There is no togetherness about it. Now, in view of this, which is a very strong and well authenticated view, another problem for us is solved. وَرَفَعْنَا بَلْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ. But God raised Jesus Christ towards him. Because this ilah is a negation of mayyat, so if Jesus Christ was removed bodily from there in some other direction, it meant that there was no God where he was. Because according to this grammarian, the word ilah is only used to indicate the emptiness of one's place and the fullness of the other, which means that when you say from here ilah another place, it means that the body is moving from one place which is empty of that place, that thing, toward which it is moving. So it must carry two senses. The presence on the one side, which is the direction of ilah, and total absence on the other side, from which ilah begins. So now you concentrate on the other verse, which the non-Ahmadis quote to support their view that Jesus Christ was lifted bodily to the heaven. They quote the verse, Rafah bal rafahullahu ilayhi. God lifted him to himself. And they say because he is in the heaven. So it means that the body of Jesus was lifted from this earth to the heaven. And they forget that it could only mean that if there was no presence of God in the place from here his body moved. Now this is the meaning of ilah, grammatically. And if you understand the meaning, then you have to choose one of the two concepts. Either Jesus' body did move to a place in heaven somewhere. If that is true, then there was no God where Jesus Christ was. And if there was God where Jesus Christ was, then under this expression of ilah, his body cannot move anywhere. Because he's already in mayyat with God. And again, this objection, wherever there is mayyat, ilah, the word ilah cannot be used. For instance, my hand is touching my body, this is mayyat. It cannot move towards me, so there can be never an expression of ilah between my hand and my body. That is the true connotation of the word to which this grammarian is pointing out. And this helps us also, incidentally, solve a similar problem elsewhere. Some say the word Hawari is derived from Hur. You know, Hur is also referred to as those companions which the pious people will get in the hereafter, in the paradise. So some scholars have pointed out that the word Hawari is in fact derived from the same word, same source as the word Hur is derived from. Hur means two things. Number one who is intensely fair. And the second, the one who has big beautiful eyes. But the big beautiful eyes, the sense of big beautiful eyes is derived from the sense of whiteness, which is the essential part of this word. Because if the eyes are big, the white of the eyes shows more and more clearly and prominently. If the eye is small, then it is mostly the black part of the eye which is visible. So why hurum maqsuratum fil khayam may also mean companions with large beautiful eyes, is because in large eyes the white shows more. So it's a very sensible discussion on the derivative of as to where the word was derived from. So, according to some, when they are referred to as Hawari, it means that they were white. It doesn't mean that they could whiten others. So there is no question of their being referred to as dhobis, we call in Urdu, or washermen. All it means is that Jesus Christ had purified them well and made them white. I mean, this is what I'm attributing. What they say is that they used to walk in white clothes, white robes. Because they were fond of white robes, so they were referred to as Hawariyin. But some others also say that because their hearts were pure and they were washed of all hypocrisy by Jesus Christ, so they were referred as Hawariyin. And again they point out that even flour is referred to as Hawari in Arabic because of its whiteness. Well, this is the longest discussion. I leave it out because it's unnecessary. I remember Hazrat Rasul Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam once referred to Hazrat Zubair as his Hawari. So Hawari also has a sense of somebody who remains close out of love, who prefers to be in the company of someone just because he loves him so much. So Hawari, in this sense, as used by Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may also mean that because they preferred the company of Jesus Christ, and mostly they moved about with him wherever he moved. And this is how we read about them in the Bible, that they were generally in company of Jesus Christ whenever they could afford to. Now, as to why they were called to help him when they had already accepted him, this is the question, in fact, which has been intriguing many commentators. They understand that they accepted him as a prophet of God and they offered themselves in a bondage of allegiance to him. Why this call, this urgent call for help? So Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam has written on this subject from various angles. He has raised some very interesting and delicate questions in this regard. Instead of just discussing it grammatically, how Ilah relates the word Ansari to Allah, he says that number one, the question is why a prophet of God must seek help of others when he should initially depend upon Allah. And it is Allah who has already promised him all help from him, then why should he ask others to help him? He says this is the most important thing about this statement, which should be addressed by us and understood properly. So he offers many reasons why this happens. Number one, he says that it proves that in the scheme of God's things, dua is not the only instrument which we are expected to use for the victory. And Allah does not declare us to be above His laws of nature. So true obedience to Him would be to follow Him in every possible respect, in every world He has created. Spiritually, He has created the word, the book, and the law of spirituality, etc. And in that regard, the best means available to you is to worship Him and to pray to Him and seek His help through prayers. This universe also belongs to Him. And if you ignore it, it would mean as if you are above the laws of nature. And you already consider yourself as the chosen ones of God, in the sense that you don't stand in need of submitting to the laws of nature because you are above them. So Allah says, no, you have to prove your servitude to me vis-a-vis everything which I have created. You must also follow the laws of nature which I have created. And you must also follow the laws of spirit or the spiritual world which I have created too. So there must be a perfect balance between the two. This is why all the prophets of God, according to Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi wasalam, although they were certain 100% that even if they did not move a finger, God's will be done, whatever God had designed would be fulfilled. And they had no shadow of doubt about that. Yet they did not leave any stone unturned as far as the material measures were concerned, the worldly measures were concerned, to achieve that cause. Because that taught them humility vis-a-vis God. And so that it kept them cut to size, and they understood well that they are servants and creatures of God, and whatever comes from God, they must submit to Him. So this, in fact, is the consummate sajda. Sajda means prostration to God. Prostration not only partially, but completely. Whatever is of God or from God, you bow to Him. So there, following the laws of nature becomes a worship. It is not like a scientist observing the laws of nature, because he does it for other purposes. But if somebody does it because he is bowing to the will of God in every possible respect, whatever comes from God, he respects Him, then this practice becomes a worship. Again, Hazrat Masih Maud says, he says, naturally, therefore, the prophets of God must need help of others. Because if worldly measures are also to be taken to achieve the grand purpose of God's scheme, so he says they invite his followers, and sometimes in crisis, on special occasions, very special help is needed. So they invite them specially towards them on very special occasions, that now is the time. Of course, they are committed to offer everything, but at times they have to raise the cry that now is the time. If you are true in your covenants, then offer everything you have. So, ahassa minhumul kufra refers to that sort of crisis. Again, there is a very important aspect of this, that when they do whatever is in their powers to do to defeat the enemy, then what they could do at the maximum becomes apparent to the world. And the world knows that there is nothing left beyond that. And yet they are weak, and that yet they must be destroyed because the enemy is too powerful. So nothing is left hidden of their weakness. If there are unused potential powers which are not employed, then there is a possibility of people thinking that perhaps they were powerful enough. But when they have put everything in the way, when there is nothing left, then the matter becomes very evident and clear that this is their entire worth. And when they become victorious after that, this victory becomes absolutely grand and most beautiful to look at. Secondly, when they find themselves having exhausted their resources to whatever they could do, then they find themselves overwhelmed, then a cry rises from them, from within them, which is the prayer in earnest. Previously, their prayer would have been just academic. They would know that God is going to help them and make his work victorious ultimately. So they pray formally and sort of, by lips, not so much by heart, because they already know it. But when they know, they have also to play their part, and then when they get actually involved in everything, and then they find no way out, then the cry in desperation, which is so natural, that is the prayer which is accepted and which shows miracle. So, Mata Nasrullah is a similar prayer in a similar situation as Man Ansari ilallah. Mata Nasrullah is attributed to Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his followers. At the time of the crisis, when the crisis was extreme and there was apparently no way out left for them, and everybody believed that now they are overwhelmed and destroyed. The founder of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the founder of Islam, and his followers. Now, this is the beauty of that cry. They didn't address people, Man Ansari. They knew all the time that all the practice exercises in which we are involved are just a secondary thing, and they were waiting all the time for that final help from Allah. So when they exhausted themselves and there was nothing left, then they said, Man Ansari ilallah. Now, Mata Nasrullah. God, this is the time now. If your aid did not come now, when would it come? And that is the time. Allah inna nasrallahi qareeb, when they hear that, of course, the help of Allah is clear, nigh at hand. It's with you already. Again, they themselves cannot entertain false ideas that, well, we became victorious, but if we had done it ourselves, we could have done that, achieved that, that sort of thing. So now they are this is a lesson in humility, in par excellent. Beyond that, no lesson in humility can be given. God says, all right, do whatever you may. We permit you to use the worldly thing, means all that is in your power, and we want you to know that you will not succeed by yourself. Then whatever comes from Allah is, much more lovely to look at. Then they cherish the beauty of that aid far more than if they had not participated as they always do to their full extent. Hazrat Muslim Maud has explained why this Nahnu Ansarullah and at what stage, according to him, this invitation is extended to others. He says, Nabi pehle sirf aam dawat karta hai. It is customary that prophets first issue a general invitation. When he has already prepared enough ground and collected a few faithful, then he declares that now is the time for you to get to have initiated by a formal covenant. Then people are turned against them, and then they declare them to be kafir, that is, disbelievers, etc., etc. And then he collects all his followers and makes a separate community, officially declares it to be a community separate from the rest of the people. So this process is referred to, according to Sahih Muslim Maud, as Man Ansari ilallah. Previously, among the crowds, there were those who believed in him, and there were those who did not believe in him, but there was not a final sifting, a final separation of the believer from the non-believer. It was a diffused affair, and there were believer, non-believer all mixed up in a crowd. So then a time came when he was afraid of the mischief at the hand of those who disbelieved. So he wanted to have his followers uh, get separated from the disbelievers. So this is why he made this call. And he says this is exactly what Hazrat Masih Maud also did. First, he wrote Brahine Ahmadiyya and served the cause of Islam in every possible way. Quite a few people gathered round him and started respecting him. But when he made the claim that he was from God, then the stage of hassa minhumul kufra also arrived, and then he was afraid of violent opposition. At that time, it was essential that those who belonged to him would be made distinctly apart from those who opposed him. So then he declared that those who actually belonged to him should come and get initiated at the hand of Hazrat Masih Maud. It is referring to the first Bayat at Ludhiana. فلما أحس عيسى منهم الكفر قال من أنصاري إلى الله قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله آمنا بالله واشهد بأننا مسلمون. Here the word washhad is also made the focus of attention by many scholars. He said that when this call of Jesus Christ was responded to by his followers, why did they say Amanna billahi washhad bi anna muslimun? That you bear witness that we are among those who have submitted. They say, and of course rightly so, that every prophet is a shaheed. Because in fact, it is the prophet who would bear witness to the true faith of his believers. As if a prophet did not pass somebody as believer, his belief would not be accepted. That sort of situation is conceived by the word shahada. So in the Holy Quran, and the commentators have referred to the verses which bear the reference to other prophets, and in some places all prophets, to be shaheed, shuhada over their people. But there is one verse in which Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam is declared to be shaheedun ala shuhada. That is to say, he would be the shaheed of the prophets themselves. All the prophets are shaheed in the sense that it is their testimony which is going to be of some avail to their followers. Now, what is their testimony? This is the intriguing question which has not been taken up by other scholars, but I feel that this is the more important part of it. They have a mechanical idea that on the day of resurrection, each prophet would sift out his believer from the non-believer in a sort of parade. People would pass by, for instance, or would be gathered and would say, oh, all right, leave this crowd, you do not belong to me, you come and follow, that sort of thing. All this is just, a very naive thinking about what is going to happen in the hereafter. Shahada is a thing completely different. It is a process of judging people by applying the touchstone of their own character or let us say by applying them, their character, to the touchstone of their character. And a decision is automatically given. It is not a process where witnesses are called and witnesses are offered. It is a process which is automatic. Every prophet has a set of character, a bearing, a personality. And those who belong to him, they begin to be like him. And if they are like him, the shahada of the prophet is a silent shahada, but it would be given words in the day of judgment, maybe. We don't know what may happen there. But it is the shahada of the hair which is referred to, which would carry weight in the hereafter. So if you want that Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam should be shaheed over you, you should attempt very seriously to get his stamp upon you. This is indeed a stamp. This is why the seal is used to verify a document. And now we understand also the true meaning of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam being Khatamun Nabiyyin. Shaheedus Shuhada and Khatamun Nabiyyin are one and the same thing. Every prophet is a khatam for his people. That is to say, they are judged by his character and his style of life, his way of life. And if they are close to him, as I have said, they would pass as his, otherwise not. Now that means, Khataman Nabiyyin means that the truth of every prophet would be judged according to the character of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If there is anything contradictory to the lifestyle of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and everything that belonged to him, then such a claimant is a false man. He cannot be declared a prophet. So anything attributed to prophets which does not have its authenticity, which does not receive authenticity from what actually happened to Ahmad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in the similar circumstances, is also wrong. So if the Prophet is true, that incident which is attributed to him is false. Because otherwise, it is impossible for a true prophet not to pass through the criterion of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's character and how God treated him. There are two things which must be borne in mind together. This is why Hazrat Masih Maud Wasalam, in arguing against the bodily ascension of Jesus Christ, emphasized that when Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went through the similar crisis where his life was threatened, he was not ascended bodily. He was left there to suffer at the hands of the enemy until a time when he was almost declared dead. God saved him miraculously in that situation, but never raised him to the sky. Now, was Jesus more dear to him? Was Jesus closer to him than Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? That in the similar situation or even less dangerous situation, he was lifted bodily to the heaven. So this is the meaning of Shahada in the true sense. The life of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and how God treated him would bear witness against Jesus Christ if this is exactly what happened to him. It cannot happen to a true prophet. So the corollary would be that either he is a false prophet or he is not a prophet but is son of God. So either of the two possibilities are not acceptable to the Muslims. So here the word shaheed means this, Washhad bi anna muslimun, that we pray thee to make us like you. We are in your hands. We have submitted to you. And this truth of our intention, this honesty of submission, is now in your hand to be proved. Make us go through the mill of reformation so that we become ultimately like you. This is why here Amanna is mentioned before Muslim. Otherwise, Muslim is the first act of acceptance, and Iman is considered to be higher in order and status. So why, when they had been referred to as Mu'minin, Amanna, they claimed, why should they say after that Muslim, make us Muslim? Because apparently Muslim is a word of the lower order than Amanna, but in some sense it becomes a word of the higher order, in the sense of complete submission. So here the word Muslim again refers to the same subject. We have believed in you now. Now the process of reformation must begin, and we want you to bear witness to our characters, that we did submit to you and we did offer ourselves to you so that you could do whatever you pleased with us. So immediately following this, Washhad bi anna muslimun, the following verse makes the complete picture. Rabbana amanna bima anzalta wattabana rasula faktubna ma shahidin. That, O our Lord, now instead of addressing Jesus Christ, they're addressing God directly. Rabbana amanna bima anzalta, O our Lord, we have believed in whatever you revealed to this claimant. Wattabana rasula, and we have in all earnest followed this prophet of God. Faktubna ma shahidin. So count us among shahidin. Now this is a very interesting turn, because previously they wanted to be mashhood. Now they are praying to God to make them shahid. So this is an elevated status which should be understood. When they say to Jesus Christ, Washhad bi anna muslimun, it means that you become the shahid, that is the one who bears testimony, and we become the subject of your testimony. And when they address God, they completely turn the subject in a different direction. They say, oh God, as far as you are concerned, we want a different thing from you. We want you to make us shahid. That is to say, we become perfect models in your sight, so that people are judged by application to our testimony. This is the consummate perfection which is being referred to here as faktubna ma shahidin. So it's not a vain repetition of the same word. If you understand, they mean different things in the first verse and in the second verse. And again, it is God alone who makes a shahid. Prophets do not become shahidin themselves. And nobody has a right to become a shahid. And even a prophet cannot make others shahid. Except for one man, no other prophet has been referred to as having this quality of turning others into shahid. And that one was Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is again one of the meanings of Khatamun Nabiyyin, that he was the one, if somebody followed him perfectly, he could turn him into a shahid. This is why Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam said, Uski tawajjo nabi tarash hai. He has that excellent quality about him, that if he concentrates with love and affection on somebody, he can turn a prophet out of him. So this is the process of making shahid. Previous prophets were not given that quality of making others shahidin. And if somebody submitted to the will of Muhammad fully and completely without keeping anything of his own, then he could expect to have been turned into a prophet, in the sense that God will, of course, God will make him or not make him. That is the decision of God. But as far as the preparation is concerned, the prerequisite is concerned, the following of the Holy Prophet can make one a shahid. So this is the fine deviation which I thought must be brought to your notice. Because there is no time for taking up the next verse now, inshallah we'll turn to it tomorrow.